Good morning, dear friends, and welcome to this moment that we were invited with our hearts full of joy to participate on this amazing 10th anniversary of Kardec Radio. And happy 4th of July to everyone. We would like to share with you a moment from our heart and a moment of instructions from the Gospel according to Spiritism. Before we do so, we would like to pray together with you so we can open up this amazing moment and allow ourselves to dive into the teachings of the spirits and the teachings of Spiritism. On this note, I would like to invite everyone to share with us a moment of prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, we ask that you guide us all during this amazing moment that we'll have here, during this day in which we celebrate the amazing freedom that we share in this planet, in this country today. We're thankful for the amazing opportunity to be together, to have the capabilities to share with one another our importance, as well as to change our behaviors, our bad habits, through the knowledge and help of others that guide us every single day. We're thankful for our mentors, the mentors of Kardec Radio, and all of the work that we do together. May we bring this joy to our homes as we speak and as we transmit the good vibrations that have bestowed upon us during this moment that we share together. We thank you, dear Lord, and so be it. So, as we were saying, we would like to take a moment to share, as I share my screen here with you, this amazing opportunity that we have to kind of get some guidance in this moment that we have. As we have been invited to this day of celebration, not of the world, but celebration that we are all together, that we have one another, that we have a message to console ourselves, because we're all in need of consolement, we're all in need of help, because we have our conditions from the past, not to make us feel any small or bad or anything like that, but really to give us the ability to rehabilitate ourselves. And that is true celebration, right? When we know that we have the ability to count on someone, to know that we have the ability to count on our Master Jesus to console ourselves. So we would like to start with this great picture right here. This is a picture by Pompeo Battoni, depicting the return of the prodigal son. Many of us know about this amazing story that Jesus actually tells us, right, about the return of the prodigal son. And it is in Luke chapter 15. If we want to look later on and kind of go through it and read it, we're not going to go through directly on the actual parable, but to kind of illustrate what we were talking about and give the basis of what we would like to talk about. Technically, when we read this parable, and if you may come across, there are two emphases here, right? The emphasis number one is to the prodigal son, obviously. And the second emphasis is actually the prodigal son when he comes back, the prodigal son's brother, that when he comes back, the prodigal son's brother gets upset because the father receives the prodigal son back, tells everyone, that his family and everyone else, all his workers, to that they were going to celebrate a party because the prodigal son had returned. It's a beautiful passage that really makes us think about the need for us to forgive, the need for us to allow one another to truly utilize of their free will, even though that may be going against or what we think or what we believe is the correct thing to do or not. But quite often we forget about the father. We forget about the parent who is who is actually at that moment of joy is rejoicing the feeling that with the feeling that the son is back. Right now he has part of his family that had left return, right, to come back and with a with a new realization. And we also forget as well the pain that this father, and we would like to include as well the mother, goes through when a son or a daughter leaves the house or goes through a moment again on their lives that perhaps is not conducive to what they have thought and what they had brought to their lives, right? And hence the the name of the presentation or this moment that we would like to entitle here, Children's Ingratitude and Family Ties. That is exactly what we were talking about. Again, if you want to go ahead and read a little bit more about the parable, please go to Luke 15, and you should be able to go ahead and find the parable. But we're utilizing this idea, the unhappiness of the father at the moment, prior to what we read on the parable, the moment that he goes through of indignation, of the ingratitude of the son that is presented towards the father that has done everything for that son, and he's trying to leave the house, right? Or he's trying to separate from the household in any way, shape, or form. And we would like to offer this to you, to all of us that are going through this difficult moment, that Spiritism explains to us what to do, on how to conduct ourselves, so that in the future we don't find ourselves in the same way. And this is the beauty of Spiritism, that we find the equipment, if we will, to understand where we are right now, right? Because of the reasons, certain reasons in the past that we only find in the past, as well as and how we need to conduct ourselves so that in the future we don't find ourselves in the same situation. And that is not only for us, but for those who are around us as well, who are partaking certain roles in our lives right now. So let us dive into this amazing chapter, and it's actually chapter of 14 and item 9 by Saint Augustine. And we'll go over the whole message, because we thought that it's important for us to keep true to the message, number one, and number two, that is very important for us to take certain parts of each paragraph, so it allows us to truly connect mind and heart to what St. Augustine is telling us. So he starts this way: ingratitude is one of the most immediate fruits of selfishness. It is always revolting to honest hearts. But the ingratitude of children towards their parents has an even more odious character. It is particularly from this point of view that we will look at ingratitude in order to analyze its causes and effects. In this case, as in all others, Spiritism has come to shed light on one of the problems of the human heart. So it's important to highlight here this idea of ingratitude, right? This idea of when something is done or when some condition is presented, it's not well, let's not say received or understood, right? The struggles that one goes through to provide or to give something or to considered something to someone else, and that individual does not receive or at least show some a way of to give thanks, right? By even utilizing sometimes the resources that is actually bestowed upon that individual. And we see here that is, as St. Augustine is telling us, that is basically an immediate way of showing selfishness. But why is that person selfish? Why is the individual present him or herself that way towards what has been given or has been stolen upon that individual? The resources, the time, and everything else, right? We have to dive into different aspects of our lives here. One which only Spiritism can remind us, which is the past. Right? And this is hard because sometimes if we don't find as we also find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, if we don't find the reasons for our sorrows and our difficulties in this lifetime, guess what? We are invited to dive in into the past as well. So let's move on, and we will try to understand together this moment. What are we trying to say? When the spirit leaves the earth behind, it takes with it the passions or virtues inherited on its nature and goes into the spirit world either to perfect itself or to return at a standstill until it desires to see the light. Some therefore depart carrying with them great hatred and insatiable desires for vengeance. But a few of those, more advanced than others, are allowed to glimpse a bit of the truth. They realize the disastrous effects of their passions and then resolve to do better. They understand that in order to reach God, there is one word only: charity. However, there can be no charity without forgetting offenses and the wrongs. Neither can there be charity with hatred in the heart, and without forgiveness. So the highlight here, folks, is that we want to make sure that we include this, or in this transition moment here that Saint Augustine is talking about. But also not only others, but also ourselves. So it's all of us. We all go through this because we're not here to pick or to point fingers or this person, that person, because quite frankly, we have shown some ingratitude towards others at one point of our lives or not. But we want to make sure that we really encompass all of us in this transition, because we go through this, right? We go through the transition of the physical body back to the spiritual world, and then when we realize what we have done in the past, and when we're given the opportunity, we look back and say, you know what? I should have done better here, right? And we can justify this, and we can really accept this by looking at the conditions that we are going through in our lives right now. It's something normal. It's something that we all go through. So it's nothing to be scared by, but it's a reality that Saint Augustine is showing us. And this is the truth about Spiritism. This is the beauty about Spiritism, is this truth that it comes to us saying, look, we're all together. We all have done this, but it's important that we really accept this truth and understand with the reasoning that it comes to us. And then he continues and says, next, through an unprecedented effort, the spirits look at those they detested while on earth, but at such a sight, their animosity reawakens. They rebel against the idea of forgiveness and even more against self-denial, especially when it means loving those who perhaps destroy their fortune, honor, or family. In spite of this, however, the heart of these unfortunate spirits is shaken. They hesitate and waver, troubled by their conflict sentiments. If the resolution to do better wins, they pray to God and implore good spirits to give them strength at the most decisive moment of trial. So imagine being in this position. Imagine being in this condition where we ourselves are now realizing, in this moment of realization. Let us put ourselves in that position, that we're in this moment of realization that the individuals the family that we're going to reincarnate, or the individuals that we're going to reincarnate with, are those who are in a condition that perhaps in the past they hurt us. They actually did something towards us, right? It's quite difficult. And we see in the literature, in many of the books on André Louise, the series on André Louise, and other books as well, that there are certain things that happens in family gatherings or family re-encounters, if we want to say it that way, that really makes us question, why is this happening? Why did this happen? Why this event or that behavior is happening, right? And sometimes it's very hard to find the reasons why, once more, because we're only looking with our lenses of this lifetime. But when we apply the past to the equation, when we add the past to the equation, things that then kind of change the scenario a little bit. And we see that with past behaviors in this lifetime, that there is some kind of animosity or some kind of disagreement, to say that way as well, that some individuals may have, that they kind of shows that, you know what, let us try to work on these areas, because if we don't, things will go south. In the future as well. And unfortunately, it does happen, because sometimes we either tend to run from it, or just hide from something that is so obvious in our lives. We're not saying that this is applies directly to you. Once more, we're only trying to bring comfort with this amazing message by Saint Augustine, and we go over more so you will truly understand the full message. Finally, after years of meditation and prayer, the spirit profits from the use of a body that is to be born in the family of the one it used to hate, and it asks the spirits designated to transmit the divine orders to be allowed to fulfill on the earth the destiny of the body that is about to be formed. So, how will it behave as a member of this family? Again, we have an individual now that's reincarnating in a family that perhaps have members or all the members, right? Some members or all the members that in the past have done harm to that individual. So how will it behave, right? That will depend on the degree of persistence of its resolution to do better. The constant contact with individuals it used to hate is a terrible trial to which it succumbs, sometimes if its will is not sufficiently strong. Thus, depending on whether its good or bad resolution prevails, it will either be a friend or enemy of those among whom it has been called upon to live. This is how one can explain how hatreds, those instinctive repulsions that may be observed in certain children and which no previous act seems to justify. In fact, there is nothing in the present existence that could have caused such an empathy. In order to understand it, one must look to the past. As we were saying, the past is a key element of this the equation that we see here, and everything will depend on how those now reconnected by the physical body will be able to maintain this relationship, not only in the now but also in the future, in a way that is constructed for everyone. And this is the hardest part, right? Because we all have our free will. We all have the ability to fight or fly, right? Or do the different things that we would like to do, but at a cost. And the cost is, if God has given us the ability to reconnect, for us to amend things of the past, guess what? We ought to try our best. We're not saying that you have to do this, we have to do that. But with Spiritism, things comes a little bit clear to us. With this message, things comes a little bit clear to us. So what we used to be our best in the past now becomes a must in the present, because now we have the reason. Now we have not only the reason, but also the profits of the heart that allows us with the reason to become a little bit better, or to become a little bit more evolved. But giving continuation to this, the amazing mentor says to us, "O Spiritists, you must understand humankind's grand role. You must understand that when you produce a body, the soul who incarnates in it has come from the spirit world in order to progress. Know your duties and put all your love in leading that soul to God. This is a mission that has been entrusted to you, and for which you will receive recompense if you faithfully fulfill it. The care and education you give it will help in its self-improvement and future well-being. Remember that God will ask every father and every mother, 'What did you do for the children whom I entrusted your care? If because of your fault they have remained behind, your punishment will be to see them among the suffering spirits, when it depended on you for them to be happy. Hence, you yourselves, tormented by remorse, will ask to repair your wrong. You will ask for yourselves and for them another reincarnation, in which you will surround them with more enlightened care, and full of gratitude, they will surround you with their love.'" It's interesting here, because the Saint Augustine is telling us about our role, Spiritists, right? If you consider yourself, I consider myself a Spiritist, we ought to ask: have we brought one another. And this is, I would like to again bringing ourselves to the whole picture here. Let's analyze the whole picture, not just say uh, Mary, John, or someone who would deal with it or whatnot, but every one of us. Have we brought our loved ones and those who are connected with us closer to God? And this is not to say that have we prayed together. This is not to say that we have read a passage of the gospel together, right? But in terms of values, in terms of um, examples, right? In terms of the hard work that we have to put on when we are reincarnated, as well as discarnated for sure. But we're bringing here the values that we learn from our Master Jesus. This is the great example, or the true connection with God that we can bring about to our surroundings, to those who live with us. And if we can say, yes, we have done our best to the best of our abilities, because what I do is much different from what you do. And what you do may be quite a bit more than what I'm doing. So it's important for us to value everything. We recently came to, as we were speaking with our dear friends, we were asked about, what is to do the right thing. Well, it depends. I mean, and really, it's a very broad question, because it's hard for me to say that, what the other person is doing is his or her limit in terms of quality, in terms of quantity. It depends on each one of us. But we know, if we were to ask ourselves, we know we can only respond to ourselves. And that is the beauty here, because if we can say that I have done my best, could it be done more? Yeah, sure, for sure. I mean, we can always do better, but we have our limitations, right? And it is on this limitation that we sometimes look at and say, I cannot do much more now. Now I need the help of the education of the school. Now I need the help of education of the Spirit Center, right? So if we are able to say that I have done the best that I can with the help of all of those that are connected with us, great. And we see that an individual, even in the moment of a discord, of a separation, or perhaps the difficult moments that we have, the sour moments that we have, the base is going to be there. The conditions that the individual needs to analyze themselves and say, you know what, I can do A or B or C, will be there, so that they can actually maintain themselves the best way possible. So, but it's important for us to make sure that we question ourselves every single day. Are we bringing one another closer to God? And that is not only the son or daughter, the brother, the sister, but we'd like to include the mother, the father, everyone. And obviously, let's not forget, because it starts with us. So ourselves. Are we connecting with God in every way, shape, or form? And then we continue to the following. Therefore, do not rebuff the little child who spurns its mother, nor the one who repays you with ingratitude. It was no accident that made it that way and gave it to you. An imperfect intuition about the past is being revealed, from which you may deduce that one or the other of you has hated much, or has been greatly offended, and that one or the other has come to forgive or to expiate. Mothers, embrace, therefore, the child who causes you trouble, and say to yourself, one of us was blameworthy. Make yourself deserve the divine joys that God has bestowed upon motherhood by teaching your children that they are on the earth to improve themselves, to love, and to be blessed. But alas, many of you, instead of using education to drive away the innate evil tendencies brought over from the previous lifetimes, maintain and increase them because of a blameworthy weakness or because of the negligence. And later on, your heart, ulcerated by the ingratitude of your children, will be for you, starting in this life, the beginning of your expiation. This is quite amazing, the direct way, but very kind way that Saint Augustine brings this alertness to us, right? This warning to all of us to do the best that we were supposed to do. Don't rebel against rebellion. Try to do the opposite, which is very hard. And my heart goes to you, to the moments that sometimes we have to really swallow that ingratitude and say, okay, this is the moment that God has given me to go ahead and turn this around and help this individual also turn this around. But sometimes we do the opposite. We repay with more ingratitude, which only feeds more fuel to the fire. There is a very interesting chapter, I believe, if not mistaken, the chapter number 2 of the book Action and Reaction, right? When one mother, um, um, in the location where Andrea Luiz is actually describing, where he is going through his studies, if you will, in the spiritual plane, comes across this lady in the it's what's called Mansão Paz, right? Um, um, Peace Mansion, excuse me, that he is actually describing the encounter of this mother who is very afflicted on the situation, the condition that her son is going through, that is requesting as well, to the mentor, a way to reincarnate with the son. And there is this amazing explanation by Andrea Luiz that she's suffering so much because she has unfortunately allowed the son to fall into temptations that perhaps she should have actually stopped him from doing, right? And we all know that perhaps that there are certain situations that, as we mentioned, we all have free will, that the son or the daughter may not follow it, but she could have done different things to at least mitigate the situation, and so perhaps that if she had done, she wouldn't find herself in that position, and he wouldn't be suffering as he was in the spiritual plane. But once more, forgiven if this is wrong, but it's either chapter 2 or chapter 3 of the book Action Reaction by Andrea Luiz through the hands of the medium Chico Xavier. And then we continue to share this with you when he says, the task is not as difficult as you might think. However, it does not require the wisdom of the world. The uneducated as well as the learned can fulfill it. And Spiritism has come to facilitate it by making known the cause of the imperfections of the human heart. It's not hard, and it's much easier than we think, actually. From infancy, this is the we would like to say that the fathers and mothers sometimes they don't have the instructions. They don't receive the instructions, and I'll take back a little bit here because I think this is also important to say that the fathers and mothers don't bring the instructions, don't receive the actual instructions directly at that moment when they are when the baby is reincarnating, right? That moment that they're receiving the child in their home, right? But we have to do one thing, and I would like to add this beyond of what is going to be said here by Saint Augustine. We all have a reincarnatory plan, right? And it's important that we acknowledge this. In this reincarnatory plan can be accessed at any time we would like to. Not to the fully details, because there are certain things that perhaps we won't remember, but also, but there is an opportunity for us to kind of like take a glimpse at it, right? To say, what may happen if we're going through perhaps a moment. I'll give an example. If we're going through a moment of difficulty in our lives, we can ask our mentors, am I supposed to go through this? Quite often you will get the right answers in terms of, yes, if we're going through, perhaps we have to go through. God is allowing this to happen. And if it is part of the reincarnatory plan, because not everything is written on the reincarnatory plan, right? We should be able to kind of take a look at it and better strategize around that event, around that what is happening to each one of us, not only for ourselves but the other individuals as well, because the reincarnatory plan will be mentioning, okay, this is going to happen to me perhaps as I'm going walking the world with A, B, and C person. So we can then strategize together and say, you know what if we do this way, right? What if we try to tackle this task that we have assigned ourselves? Because most of the time it's not somebody imposing this on us, but we, all of us, choosing to do A, B, or C. So we can go back to this reincarnatory plan and analyze it together, right? Asking our mentor, asking the guidance of the spirits to allow us to see this and kind of refresh our minds. And you say, perhaps I should do this way. Let us continue as he was saying here, because this is very important. More important than what I just mentioned, he says, from infancy, children manifest the good or evil instincts they have brought from their previous existence, and it is necessary that we apply ourselves to studying them. All evils have their origin in selfishness and pride. So watch out for the least signs that reveal the seeds of these vices, and take care to combat them without waiting for them to put down deeper roots. Do as a good gardener. Do as good gardeners who cut off the defective shoots as soon as they appear on the tree. If selfishness and pride are allowed to develop, do not be surprised if you are paid back later with ingratitude. When parents have done everything they should for their children, more advancement, but are unsuccessful, nonetheless, they have nothing to reproach themselves for, and their conscience can rest easy. But as for the very natural heartache they feel from the failure of their efforts, God reserves a great and immense consolation through the certainty that is only a delay, and that it will be given to them achieve in another existence the work they have begun in this one, and that someday their ungrateful children will repay them with love. So we see here, this is a little bit of information here, and there are two things that I would like to highlight with you here. If from infancy we see, if we see anything that is not going to plan, and this is by our moral standards, right? This includes our what we believe it's correct or not, right? So it's important to, number one, well, if we see these things happen in children, we need to change it. We need to help it change it before, as the mentor is saying, they create deeper roots, right? So we see a behavior that is not conducive to what we believe is correct. We need to stop it. We need to change it. How do we change a behavior? By implementing a better behavior, a more positive behavior. And we also are in need to do what? To exemplify it. Recently, at my place of work, since I deal with the public in a day-to-day basis, I came across something very interesting. This mother comes in with two children, right? They were not toddlers, but they were about, let's say, around 4 and 3, or they were very young. And one child actually hit the other as they were waiting for the mother to do whatever she had to do. And the one son comes, the son who was hitting starts crying, and she stops what she was doing. And I'm thinking, okay, now she's going to hit the other child. Quite the opposite. She goes and she tells the kid who was crying. I'd never seen this before. This was amazing. He tells the kid how they was crying. Wait a minute, I'm talking to him. And she goes and tells the son, the son who hit the brother, to say, you're not supposed to do this. This is what you're supposed to do to your brother. And she kisses him, and she asks him, please don't do this anymore. And then she goes back and helps the kid who was actually hit. And she tells her he's not going to do this anymore. You're okay. You're fine. And she kisses him as well. It was amazing, because the first reaction for someone is to do what? Is to actually go and give care and give loving to the one who was hit. She was doing that mainly because she was addressing a situation that she did not want to see anymore, to happen anymore, by exemplifying as well with that son who unfortunately struck the brother, by saying, this is not what it's supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do, which is to kiss your brother, to love your brother. And then she came back to what she was doing, and they were fine. Everything changed because the brother who also got hit stopped crying. He was okay. They weren't perfect. They were not like, in let's say, in the positive status, in terms of relationship, but they were a little bit more settled than obviously when they went through their alterations there. But the exemplification is also key here, right? That we also have to do. But that takes what? Takes education of the parent, right? So it's important for parents as well to educate themselves, because we are also sons and daughters of the past. We are also sons and daughters of the environment in which we live. And most that we receive is what? The negative, right? We still have a lot of negative being emphasizing on us, but by what we watch, TV, the shows that we watch, and society in general. There are a lot of negative things happening, and very seldom we stop and we try to re-educate ourselves. Sometimes the education that we receive, since we gave this example, is okay. You know what? The son who is strike, let's go ahead and strike that son as well, and let's show him that is how that hurts. Not necessarily it is the right behavior. Unfortunately, is what we thought and is what we have received by our parents and by society. But that is the moment that we can say, I'm going to change this. We're not going to exemplify that behavior anymore. And the second point that I would like to share with you here, or to emphasize here, is that there are parents who have done all of this, right? And if it continues in the future, if the ingratitude continues in the future, guess what? God will take care of it, because we know that we have done the best that we can, that we have done what we were supposed to do towards one another. So let us move on, as we are coming towards the end of here, when he says, God never imposes trials beyond the strength of those who ask for them. He only allows trials that can be accomplished. Regarding those who do not succeed, it is not because they lack the ability to be, but because they lack the will. For there are many who, instead of resisting their evil tendencies, take pleasure in them. It is for these that tears and cries of anguish are reserved in later existences. Therefore, admire the goodness of God, who never shuts the door to repentance. A day will come when wrongdoers tire of suffering, when their pride is finally controlled, and that is when God opens his paternal arms to the prodigal son, who throws himself at his feet. Harsh trials, hear me well, almost always indicate an end of suffering and of an improvement for the spirit when they are accepted out of love for God. It is a supreme moment during which it is especially important not to fail by complaining if one does not want to lose the fruits of such a trial and have to start it all over again. Instead of complaining, thank God for offering you the opportunity to triumph in order to award you with the prize of victory. Then, when you leave the whirlwind of the terrestrial world and enter the spirit world, you will be acclaimed like this soldier who has departed victorious from the midst of combat. So let us let's give God our thank you for this moment that we are going through. If we're going through this moment, if we go through the gratitudes of life by one another, to say, what, let me rejoice at this moment, because this is an opportunity that I have to readdress of the past, and also to understand that we're all in need of help, and to extend a hand whenever possible, right? This is quite hard, because when we are suffering, we don't tend to see this way. But if we connect with God, as we have mentioned earlier, if we're establishing this and strengthening this connection with God, it should be able to be a little bit easier for us to see this transformation, right? So and let's not take pleasure on the wrongdoings of the past, on the lives of the past. Let us take pleasure on the new things that we can accomplish, the changes that we can accomplish, right? Of all trials, The hardest are those that affect the heart. Some courageously bear misery and material privations, but yield to the weight of domestic bitterness, bruised by the gratitude of their loved ones. Oh, what pungent heartbreak that is! However, in such circumstances, what can better display more courage than an understanding of the causes of evil and the certainty that even if there are long afflictions, despair does not last forever. For God cannot want one of his creatures to suffer eternally. What can be more consoling, more encouraging than the thought that it depends on your own efforts to shorten your suffering by destroying the causes of evil within yourselves? To do so, however, you cannot keep your gaze on the earth and see only one existence. Lift yourselves up and hover in the infinity of the past and the future as well. It's important that we have this perspective, let's say, 360 the perspective, and it's even kind of hard to, when we talk about the long past and the long future. But it's important for us to, as he's saying, let us take everything into perspective. Yes, what has happened in the past, but also what will happen in the future, so we can be that, utilize the futuristic mind, right, visionary mind. That if I do this now, what are the consequences? The good, and for sure to analyze that in the bad, by the bad that we do, but also the good that we do. Excuse me. Then God's great justice will be revealed to you, and you will wait patiently because you understand that what seemed like monstrosities while on the earth, and the wounds that you received there will seem like nothing more than scratches. In that glance cast over the whole, family ties will appear in their true light. They are no longer the fragile ties of matter connecting family members, but the lasting ties of the spirit, which continue and consolidate as they purify themselves instead of being broken through reincarnations. This is where we want to be, folks. Remember, if the trial is hard now, if we feel that it's unbearable, that usually shows a condition or the end of a difficult endeavor. So we got to do the best we can to continue and not let ourselves lose the fight. To finalize, folks, the spirits, at least this part, the spirits whose similarity in taste, identification in moral progress, and affection are led together to form families. So we are alike. We're not different. If we're all together, there is a reason for it. During their earthly migrations, these same spirits seek one another out in order to group them together as they did in the spirit world. And for this, unite and homogeneous families are born. United, excuse me. And if during their pilgrimages they are temporarily separated, they will find one another later, happy for their latest progress. But since they must not work only for themselves, God allows less advanced spirits to reincarnate among them in order to receive counsel and good examples in the interest of their own advancement. These spirits sometimes cause trouble, but that is what comprises the trial. That is where the task lies. Therefore, welcome them as brothers and sisters. Come to their aid, and later in the world of spirits, the family will be happy for having saved castaways, who in turn will be able to save others as well. So, quite often we are born or reborn with those that we have seen in the past. And sometimes we're given the opportunity to see someone of the past, a long past, or perhaps someone that we have some things to work together, that it allows us to readdress things of the past, to perhaps show certain individuals a better way to do certain things, as we also learn collectively. So we got to take all of this into perspective and to truly make an analysis of where we are when we're going through these harsh trials. Is number one, when we should have we should be reminded through which the necessity to watch and pray, right? To really center ourselves and say, why we're going through this, why am I going through this, right? And pray for us to analyze, to go back and reconnect with our reincarnatory plan. Pray so that we can receive the guidance necessary for us to continue, so we don't get desperate, so we don't do things or say things that perhaps will be more detrimental to our elevational or progress here on planet Earth and the universe as well. So this is the message by St. Augustine, again, chapter 14 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. You may read it again, you may study again. Take the moment to really and truly read this whole chapter, because it's amazing. Because when we talk about honor your father and your mother, which is a teaching that comes through different religions, different prophets, right? And when Jesus brings this to us, that is an imperative. We would like to highlight on something. If we don't learn to honor our father, our physical fathers, right, or temporary fathers on earth, how can we honor our Creator? It's a question that I leave to you, that I would like to pass to you, because quite often is kind of unheard of it, right? This idea of honor thy father and thy mother, right? How do we do? And how do we do this? How do we honor them? It's not necessarily to accept everything that the way they think, the way they live, but to say, I will be a good citizen, right? And I will honor the opportunity that you have given me to be a better individual, so that through which I will be honor our Creator, God, in all sense of the word, anyways. But I would like to also bring some questions and answers from an amazing book that is going through the translation transition that unfortunately right now is not in English. It's this book right here, Laws of Love, by the Spirit Emmanuel, through the hands of the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier and Valdo Vieira as well. It's an old book, but it's such an amazing book that questions, and many other books that was presented to as many other questions that has been presented to the Spirit Emmanuel, and he comes and responds to us. It's interesting that Emmanuel is very how am I going to say this, direct with the answers, but not in a negative way, but to a rehabilitational way, that if we are thirsty for the answers for the questions that we have, he comes and he gives light very directly and in a very rehabilitational way as well. So it's an amazing book that covers many aspects of life, and one of them is exactly this: our connection with one another, right? And the family ties, right? And I'm going to show some of the questions, and we're going to talk about some of the questions only, not all of it, from this part, the second part. And hopefully soon we'll have this in English that we can share with one another. For those who speak Portuguese, you can read it, or if you have someone who can read it with you and then do some translation work with you, I definitely recommend. You can always Google the title and the author, and you'll be able to pull it up in PDF as well, and you can share with one another. But question 6 of this part says the following: what is the connection between consanguinity and destiny? And Emmanuel says the following: in the links of consanguinity, we regain the conviviality of all of those who join us associated with destiny, through the bonds of good or evil, through the blessed doors of reincarnation. So what is the connection that we have with one another, right? It's perhaps the reincarnation of the past. It's the actual conditions that we are readdressing of the past. There is no chance here, and we're going to see this later on. What do we need to win in the domestic battle? Because we're talking about struggles, because we're talking about the ingratitude that we face with one another. He says the following, as we would like to address it: we must clothe ourselves with patience, love, understanding, devotion, good spirit, and humility in order to learn and win in the domestic struggle. In the world, home is the first school of rehabilitation and readjustment. This by far is one of the best answers that I actually have seen in terms of this domestic battle, right? As we said, since we're looking into ingratitude and difficulties of life. Look at this. He says the following: in good spirit and human, in order to learn and win. So who is learning, right? Because we often think that the ingratitude have to learn, right? Or the ungrateful has to learn, right? But we have to learn. Let us put ourselves before anything else. It's not being selfish here to put ourselves before anything else, but to truly say, I am the one who needs to learn with this condition. And if we put ourselves as a student, we're winning, and quite often we will also help others to win as well. Because no longer I'm going to point fingers, no longer I'm going to expect things that perhaps can be expected, because we can only offer what we have. And the readjustment will happen more frequently and easier as well. What were the despotic parents in previous lives? And then he actually analyzes who are the individuals of the past. And Emmanuel says, almost always the despotic parents of today are those children of the past, in whose mind we inoculate selfishness and intolerance. So we're changing the roles here a little bit, right? Because we're talking about the ingratitude, the ungrateful children, but it's also important to see that sometimes parents, well, we're not perfect. Parents are not perfect. They also have their struggle. They also have their difficulties of the past. So not quite often, they or not always, those individuals will be of a position, will be in a position, mental and moral position, to lead perhaps the family as we would like to. And the rebellious son. Who is the rebellious son, right? And Emmanuel says the rebellious and vicious son is the brother we casted one day in temperance and delinquency. So now we're readdressing things. Now we're together to readdress perhaps the intemperance and the delinquency that we brought over that life or that mind, that heart. And now we have to make sure that we are changing the behavior, just like the mother in the example that we brought, that now we're changing the behavior, trying to change the behavior of that individual. In a behavior, it's important to highlight. It's not something that we change, with one act, with one action only. It takes time. It takes dedication. It takes a lot of effort so that behavior, the new behavior, is instilled in mind and heart. And the crazy daughter. The daughter caught in the disturbances of the heart is the young woman that in another time we induced to imbalance and cruelty, right? So the same way here, that perhaps the rebellious son or perhaps the rebellious daughter, these are the individuals that we have actually connected with in the past in a negative way. And then, does every kinship have a reason to exist? And Emmanuel says very categorically, no one has this or that kinship for no reason, since chance does not exist in the works of creation. And we would like to leave at this, right? Because if we were to believe that things are happening by chance or randomly in our lives, then it's hard to believe that we are acknowledging a creation or the creator as the supreme intelligence of the universe, the first cause of all things. First question of the Spirit's book, right? In order for us to accept this idea, we have to take the word chance out of our lives, right? So it's like, why am I going through this? Is this by chance? No, there is a reason to be. Perhaps it is a reencounter of the past. Perhaps it is a moment for me to readdress something of the past, as well as perhaps it could be a spirit that we're only together trying to rehabilitate, so that he can stay here on earth with us as we go through this moment of transition of the planet right now. One of the things that we would like to highlight as well is that in this book over here by Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, Dawn of a New Era, that he says something very interesting, and he highlights on this idea that in order for us to transition from a planet of expiation to a planet of a more resignated spirit, right? Guess what? Everybody has to be on the same page. Everyone has to benefit from a good conduct, right? And that would be my conduct towards you, your conduct towards me, and then all of us together to do such a thing and to move on, right? And as we do this, we offer you this kind and a very heartfelt happy 4th of July to each one of us, so that we can continue with our endeavors, with our families, through the struggles that we're facing or not. And happy anniversary to Kardec Radio as well. That brings us so much joy, so much great content in order for us to live a better life here on planet Earth. And to also, it's interesting that we highlight this as well, that it's not just in the now, that whatever we do, as I was saying, that Manuel Filomeno Miranda, the author of this amazing book, tells us that it's the future, right? It's our children, it's all of those that are with us in this amazing moment of our lives. There is actually some acknowledgement that I would like to bring to everyone here. Vanessa actually said, hi Leo, thank you for your loving work on the good. And Luke Allen also said, good morning, dear friends. Good morning to all of you, Vanessa, Luke, and Kardec Radio saying, hello, Leo, good morning in the good. Good morning to all of you. It has been an amazing moment that I spent here with you throughout this hour. The work will continue in this celebration of love, in the rehabilitation, right, work that is being done through this amazing effort, not only by me, by all of those. I'm learning as we go as well. So to me, it's just a joy that we can spend here together. I would like to also thank the mentors of the Kardec Radio. I'd like to thank the mentors of all the works that is being done, those individuals involved with the work as well, because they are also guiding us, right? And quite often we forget about this. On this note, I would like to close to say a few words and connect with God again to give thanks to this amazing moment. We thank you, dear Lord, for this great moment that we have, this condition that we have established in our lives to look for something more enlightening, and to bring us the courage to continue on with our lives, to try once more, despite the issues that we see, that we face, to be again this son and daughter of God who continues to try our best. Let us then connect with one another, praying and hoping that we are truly individuals honoring our physical mother and father, so we can also honor our Creator here on planet Earth and the universe. We are thankful for this amazing opportunity and all that we have, and much more that is to come today, tomorrow, and always. We thank you, and so be it. So, dear friends, thank you for this amazing opportunity that we have. Continue on your path, strong, believing that our Creator is giving us the tool, and He is, or she is, right, giving us the tool and the encouragement that we have. Look around. Look at all the resources that we have, the people that we have in this amazing work from the Kardec Radio as well. Thank you, and until next time.